Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa
Wa alaikum
barakatuh.
assalam.
Pleasure to have you here.
Same here.
Yusuf Mingazov, we have you here speaking for the very first time about the extraordinary case of your father. Your father, Ravil Mingazov, is a Russian citizen of Tatari origin. I know him personally. I was held with him in Bagram for a few months, and I know what kind of character he is as a person. But I'd like you to tell me, when was the first time you ever spoke to your father?
The first time I spoken to my father, it was in 2012, and that was in Russia. We spoke through an organization called Red Cross, and yeah, it was that time when we spoke
And
first time.
as a young boy at that age, at the age of 10 years old, what do you recall about speaking to your father? What was the idea? This is the first time you'd spoken to him almost in your life because you'd seen him the last time when you were a baby. What was it like to first to get to know your father over the phone, over Skype, from a place called Guantanamo?
To be honest with you, since I was a kid, I always dreamed about meeting my father or seeing him or talking to him. And once I had that opportunity in Russia in 2012, it was very weird. I was feeling lost, and it was seeing someone strange for me because I have never seen him in my life, and either spoken to him. And at that moment, I didn't know how to call him a dad or something. How to call him? What's the right way of calling him? Even though I wanted to say dad, but something was keeping me like weird. For a long time, I was blaming him for disappearing from my life because I was thinking, why I don't have my father with me. But at the time when I spoke to him, when I saw his smile and everything, even though my mother was telling me a lot of stories about him, good stories, everything, it was very nice to see him for the first time.
Alhamdulillah. And so your father, when he spoke to you, when he saw you the different times the odd times when you spoke together, what was his reaction to you as his son that he hadn't seen since he was a baby?
His reaction was very emotional. He had the happiness, sadness at the same time flowing, and he was just, I could see that he was investigating me all around, like how I look and everything at the moment, and it was nice to speak with him.
You know, as somebody who's with your father, and many other former prisoners that I've spoken to, we all saw him as a person, and in our interaction with him, especially mine with him in Bagram, when he saw the abuse of the Quran that the American soldiers were abusing, and he stood up and he shouted at them, and he got very angry, and he wanted to challenge them because of what he saw happen in front of him. And he was also always known by all the brothers throughout Guantanamo, somebody who would stand up for the truth, stand up for justice, no matter where he was. And that's quite unique in that kind of situation. So I was just wondering, what did you know about Guantanamo? What did you ever hear? What was your feelings about a place called Guantanamo when you first heard of it?
When I first heard of it, I've never heard of it before, so only from my mother that I know that it was a very horrible place, one of the worst prisons, but that I knew that only after Googling it.
So you literally started to find out about this place
Yes,
through internet searches.
and I could only search about it when I was around 14 or something. At that time, I knew how to use Google and everything, computer, I had an opportunity, and when I was searching, all the information was horrible about Guantanamo, nothing good about it. The tortures and everything. So I was very afraid for my father.
So before we go into detail, we're going to go in more detail about that, but just about your father a little bit, his character. You didn't know him, but
No.
people around you knew him, and they knew him well and had experienced time with him, his mother, his other relatives. What do they speak about him? What do they say about him as a person?
They always said that he's a very smart, intellectual person, strong, very handsome as well at the same time, and athletic. He used to go to ballet and everything, and he was in the military.
He studied ballet, he said.
Yeah, he used to study ballet, yeah, and he was good at it, mashallah. And he had very beautiful physique. One time I remember when I was walking with my grandmother in Russia, we went to visit her friend, old friend, and she was talking about my father to me, explaining about him because she knew I don't know anything about him. I never saw him in my life, and she was saying, when your father was walking, they used to call him as he was writing. He was walking so beautifully that everyone was just
It's like
surprised.
watching
Yeah,
something being written.
exactly,
Wow,
yeah.
that's amazing. And I can testify that, mashallah, your father is definitely, he fits all of those characteristics that you described. I've seen them myself. Um, so let's talk about Guantanamo a little bit. Did your interest in Guantanamo start to build up as you started to grow older and start to think more about your father? Or was this something, did you think that that's it, I'm never going to see my father?
And no, I used to always search and try to help him as I can, because I always had this guilt in myself that I'm not doing enough to help my father. And yeah, till this day, I've always been looking for something to help him out.
And now that time has come. You've literally come of age. You've just graduated, mashallah. And you're as we've said before, that this is the first time you're speaking about this extremely important subject, which most people won't even understand. To have a father that's held in prison for 21 years without charge, without trial, without prosecution, and without conviction.
Yes.
That's extraordinary in this day and age. So tell me, in 2015, after all of these years, after almost 15 years in prison, or 14 years, your father was transferred to the United Arab Emirates. Can you tell us about that, and what did you think was going to happen?
So at that time, it was, if I'm not wrong, I was at Leicester, and I spoke through organization of Red Cross again. We used to have Skype meetings with him. They used to give us a date, and we used to like speak with him, and it was very nice days because I could speak with my father for long times, like even for an hour or half an hour at least. And we had good conversations. We could know about each other, stuff to get closer to each other. And the last time when I spoke to him, he told me that he's gonna get moved somewhere, but he didn't tell me where exactly. And eventually, when I knew that he's gonna be transferred to UAE, they told him, when I spoke to him when he was already transferred there, he said that they promised him a good house, a job, and everything that a normal person would have. And they said they would help him with everything, and they will just hold him in a rehabilitation center, because everyone who stays in a prison for such a long time needs to get rehabilitated to a new age.
Mm.
But nothing came true.
But what happened in the end? What happened?
At the end, eventually, it wasn't a rehabilitation center. It was just a prison, solitary confinement.
And so people understand this, that he has been held after being transferred to UAE from Guantanamo after 14 to 15 years. He's been held from that time till now 7 years,
Yes,
mostly or all in solitary confinement, no
all.
charge, no trial.
No charge, no trial, all of it. He even had a hunger strike, everything, but nothing helped. They were torturing him. They were giving us calls, but which lasted for maximum 2 minutes. Some of them less than a minute, which you couldn't even speak about anything. But even though I want to mention one thing, when we used to speak with him through Red Cross and even through the phone sometimes, he always used to be positive and happy, kind of, and he wanted to show some positivity. But when I spoke with him when he was in UAE, he never had the same attributes, basically characteristic like happiness and smiling. He was always sad. You could hear it from his voice, even though he didn't say about it. But one time in specific, when he applied for hunger strike because they were torturing him. He said that they are torturing him, and they're not giving him medical help, and he had issues with his eyes and teeth and everything, but they didn't give him any help. And he said, I need help, and they shut the call straight away.
So when was the last time you spoke to father? How long has it been?
It was 3 years now.
3 years.
Yes.
And at that time when you were speaking to him is when he felt not upbeat like he used to be. He felt more broken and less hope.
Yes.
Just tell me this. Why do you think your father remained in Guantanamo for so long? What was the reason he was held there for so long?
The thing is, because he's a Russian citizen, Tatari to be specific, many of his, in 2015 to be specific, a Russian minister came to Guantanamo to ask them to come back after 15 years, not like before this or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only country that could help him because he's a Russian citizen. And he came and he was with his friends at that moment in Guantanamo. They accepted the offer, but my father knew that they won't keep him alive if he goes. It was a life danger for him, risk.
And that's because he knew what happened to other Russian citizens who'd been sent back from Guantanamo.
Yeah,
Do you have an idea of what happened to them?
Some of them got disappeared, some of them died, and some of them just hiding till now. They can't get.
And others were imprisoned arbitrarily for a long period of time without any charge.
Same cases as my father.
So this is the context of this is very important because currently Russia is accused of being involved in war crimes in Ukraine and so forth. The possibility that your father or the fear that your father could be sent from UAE, which is an ally of Great Britain and an ally of the United States of America, that he could be sent to Russia. Is that something real, or is that a real fear, or do you think that will never happen?
To be honest, they say that they're trying to, with the organization that I'm trying to help my father with, they're saying they're trying all their best to not let them get my father to Russia because it's a life risk for him. But I don't know, because they might send him there.
And in all of these years that have passed now, literally, he's been in 21 years. Have you ever heard that there's ever been an intention to take him to court, to try him, to give him any legal process?
Never. They denied it always. They never.
So he's never been designated for trial.
No.
In Guantanamo or in the United Arab Emirates.
No, none of them.
So,
even though he asked for a lawyer, they never gave him a lawyer.
Because he's never been charged with a crime.
Yeah. He had a lawyer in Guantanamo, but even then.
But that lawyer was because he's seeking to be released, not because he's charged with a crime.
Yes.
I think people should understand this, that this isn't just Guantanamo where he's held without charge or trial and tortured, but also in the United Arab Emirates where he's held without charge or trial and tortured. There was a prisoner who was held in Guantanamo for 14 years, and then he was transferred to the United Arab Emirates with your father. His name was Hamidullah Tarakhail. He was an Afghani. He said he'd been imprisoned by the Soviet Union for 5 years before the occupation of Afghanistan. He said he was imprisoned by the Americans for 14 years and for 4 years by the Emirates. He said the worst imprisonment he faced was in the United Arab Emirates. Do you think that there's a sense of betrayal, that you expect a country like UAE, which is after all a Muslim country, that you would actually get treated better? Do you think there's something about that, or was he expecting the same?
Yes, about the brother you mentioned right now, my father had the same expectation about UAE. He said in Guantanamo it was way better than in UAE. At least he had someone to speak to, and he had books or something to read. And there he's just alone. And it's such a long time. It's like a torture, mental torture. I'm just afraid for him. He said about the Emirates, when he had an options, he always wanted to go into an Islamic country because he wanted to have a good life. Even when I was young, a kid, I was just newborn. I was newborn. He and my mother wanted to raise me in an Islamic country to have good a childhood and everything, and to be a good kid and to be well developed in the future as well.
Alhamdulillah, I'm sure your father will be very proud of you.
Inshallah, jazakallah khair. And my father, he always wanted to go to Arab country and one of the options was UAE, and he was so happy that he had that option. He thought finally he will go to an Arab country, which is Islamic country. He thought, and they will treat him nicely and everything. But the only thing he had is betrayal. the treatment worse than in Guantanamo, even the enemies.
In all of this time now, you live in Britain. You've been here for the past almost a decade. You are a graduate. Where do you think your father could possibly go to, bearing in mind, where should he go to?
The solution would be to bring him here in UK. But if it's not, hopefully I'm trying to do my best to bring him here. But if it won't work, then I don't know, to be honest, exactly where it, anywhere where he would be free and could live a nice life.
Well, inshallah, we agree with you, and that this is a complete travesty of justice, that somebody could be treated in this way. It is almost, as I said, an extraordinary story, an almost unbelievable story at a period of time like this, especially when Russia is not an option for him, though he's a citizen of Russia. And it has been our life's work here in CAGE to ensure that we fight for those prisoners who've been held in Guantanamo and beyond, and try to find a solution for them. So we hope and pray that inshallah we'll find one for your father.
Ameen.
Jazakallah khair.
Wa iyyakum. Assalamu alaikum.